and arrayed him with vestures and fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. That explains to you why the so-called African Americans and blacks have to always have gold around their necks. Now, I'm saying that hypothetically. I'm saying that generally. Everybody doesn't wear gold, but I'm saying that a lot of us do wear gold around our necks. Now, I just don't have mine on today. Hallelujah. Verse 43. And he made him ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Verse 44. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zapnath Paneah. And he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. And Joseph went over all the land of Egypt. So now, here, the Pharaoh gave Joseph the daughter of Potiphar, the Egyptian. He gave him his daughter to marry. So here we find an Israelite Hebrew married to an Egyptian woman, Potiphar's daughter. Here we find Joseph, the Egyptian, or Joseph, I should say, the Israelite, marrying the Egyptian woman and having children. Verse 50. Genesis chapter 41 and verse 50. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons. Before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar. Okay, so her name was Asena. That was the Potiphar's daughter who Joseph was given to marry. Asena, the daughter of Potiphar, the Egyptian, might I add, priest of On, bore unto him. Verse 51. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. For Elohim said, he hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. Verse 52. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for Elohim hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Now stop right there, okay? The so-called British Israelism say that America and Egypt are Ephraim and Manasseh. False, fake, not true. Egypt, Potiphar's daughter, had a black woman, had a son by a black man whose father was a black man who came from Ur of the Chaldeans. How do you get a white nation out of 2 black people coming together and say that America and British Israel are the 12 tribes of Israel? That's false, fake, and not true. And the scripture says that the Gentiles shall come in that day and shall say, our fathers have inherited lies. It is an outright lie. British Israelism is false, fake, not true. We've covered a lot of territory, and we have showed you how that the father of the nation of Israel came from Ur of the Chaldeans, Abraham, and then he went into Egypt. His wife, Sarai, was very fair to the king, the pharaohs of Egypt. They wanted her to be their daughter, and they actually went into her. Now, we also dealt with how that Judah of the tribe of Israel, the one of the 12 sons, took a daughter of the Canaanites and had a child by her who was a pre-ancestor of the Messiah, a black woman Canaanite, a descendant of Ham, Ham's son Canaan, a Canaanite woman, in the lineage of the Messiah. Now, then we also went from there and dealt with Joseph, who was the son of Jacob or Jacob, Israel, who went into Egypt and got favored by the Pharaoh, and he became known as the governor or prince over the land, and the Pharaoh gave him the Potiphar, the Egyptian man's daughter, Asena, to be his wife, who gave him 2 children, Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, you tell me, how can British America and England be the 12 tribes of Israel when a black Egyptian woman and a black man whose father came from Ur of the Chaldeans had a child? How do you get white out of that? All right, now we've got clear on that particular point. Let's go forward. Now, so Israel, through Yaakov and the sons, went into Egypt. Now let's look at Exodus chapter 1. We're bringing you into the land of Egypt, or the land of the black man. Egypt is one of the sons of Ham. Mizraim, Egypt, the land of the black man. Okay? Now, here, Genesis chapter 1 and 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Yaakov. Now Yaakov is the son of Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, whose name is changed to Israel. Reuben, Simon, Levi, Yehuda, verse 3. Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the sons that came out of the loins of Yaakov were 70 souls. And Yosef was in Egypt already, and Yosef died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. So we see that the 12 tribes of Israel went in Egypt with 70 people. 70 people now. The 12 sons of Israel and 70 people went into Egypt. Right? All right. Now, I want to deal with some other subjects as pertaining to what happened in the land of Egypt. Let's look at chapter 2. I want to deal with Moshe, the prophet Moshe. All right? Chapter 2. Let's look at verse number 16. Exodus chapter 2, verse 16. And it says, Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. The shepherds came and drove them away, but Moshe stood up and helped them and watered their flocks. And when they came to Ruel, their father, he said, How is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. Now, here we find Moses, the Hebrew and Israelite, being mistaken for an Egyptian. Let's read that again. And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. So here we find the prophet Moshe being described as being an Egyptian, a black man of the sons of Ham. Ham means burnt skin. Egypt, Mizraim, is the son of Ham, the black man. And here we find the prophet Moshe being mistaken for being a black Egyptian. How about that? Now, let's continue to read. We left off at verse 20. And he said unto the daughters, And where is he? Why is it that he have left the man? Call him, and he may eat bread. And Moshe was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moshe Zipporah, his daughter. So here we see Moshe marrying. Watch this. This is deep now. This is juicy. This is better than watching a soap opera. Here we find Moshe mistaken as an Egyptian, the Midianite, who were Ethiopians, given Moshe, who he called Moses, his daughter to marry. And watch what happens in the next verse. Verse 22. And she bore him a son and called his name Gershom. For he said, I have seen a stranger in a strange land. Now, so here we find that the prophet Moshe having a son by a Midianite, Cushite, black woman. Gershom. All right? Now, I want to prove a point because you have to understand that this is the same wife. Moshe didn't have another Ethiopian wife. This was the same wife that gave him a son. So let's go over to Numbers chapter 12. Numbers chapter 12 and verse 1. And it says, Numbers chapter 12, verse 1. Here we find Miriam and Aharon making degrading remarks towards Moshe. Now, here we find verse 1, chapter 12. And Miriam and Aharon, who you call Aaron, spake unto Moshe because of the Ethiopian woman with whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. See that? And they spake, hath Yah indeed spoke only to Moshe? Hath he not spoken also by us? And Yah heard it. All right. Now the man Moshe was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And Yah spake suddenly unto Moshe and Aharon unto Miriam, come out, you three, unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And Yah came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aharon and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words, if there be a prophet among you, I, Yah, will make myself known unto him in a vision. And I will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moshe is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth. Watch this now. And not in dark speeches, and in the similitude of Yah shall be behold. Wherefore, then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe? And watch this now. And the anger of Yah was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aharon looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. Now, answer me a question, brothers and sisters. How would that be a strange thing if a white woman turned white? Here in the text, Miriam was turned white. If she was already white, why would there be a need for her to turn white? She turned white because she was black. Now, let's go to Exodus chapter 4 and watch the same thing happen to the prophet Moshe in a similar experience. Chapter 4. And Yah said, furthermore, put thy hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. Now, Charlton Heston can't do that one on the Ten Commandments, because why? A white man can't put his hand in his bosom and pull it out white because he's already white. Here, the miracle was a black man taking his hand, putting his hand in his bosom and pulling it out white. He's like, wow, look at that. One hand's white, one hand's black. Now, so he put his hand in his bosom, his hand turned white. Verse 7, and he said, put thy hand into thy bosom again. He put his hand into his bosom again and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as the other flesh. All right, so we've covered a whole lot of territory again, brothers and sisters. We dealt with how that Moshe, the prophet, went to Midian, took him an Ethiopian woman who was a black woman, married her, had a son named Gershom, came back into the land of Egypt after he had ran to escape from the Pharaoh, and then the Most High told Moshe to put his hand in his bosom. He pulls his hand out. His hand was turned leprous white. He puts his hand back into his bosom, pulls it out. It's back as the other hand. All right, now let's read that again. Exodus chapter 4 and verse 6. Let's read it again for clarity, okay? Verse 4, 6, and Yah said furthermore unto him, put now thy hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and he took it out. Behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, put thy hand into the bosom again. He put his hand into his bosom again and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as the other flesh. All right? So, verse 8, listen what he says in verse 8. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. You see that? So now that was a sign to Moshe for him to know that the Most High Yah was with him. He let that black man's hand turn white. And then he put his hand back and he brought it out. And it was back to the same color of his other hand, which was black. All right? It wasn't no white Charlton Heston Moses. He was a brother. He wasn't an undercover brother either. Hallelujah. Now, also, another point we brought out was that Moshe went down into Midian, and the Midianites, the daughters of Jethro, thought he was an Egyptian. And they said to their father that the Egyptians saved us from the Egyptians delivered us. Let's look at verse 19, chapter 2, verse 19. They said the Egyptians delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. So Moshe was looked upon as being an Egyptian. Then we find that Miriam and Aharon in Numbers chapter 12 were angry with Moshe because he married that same Ethiopian woman, and they were turned lepers white as snow. Look at Numbers chapter 12 again for clarity's sake. And he says, verse number 9, chapter 12. Let's look at verse 1. He says, and Miriam and Aharon spake against Moshe because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. Now, that's why they were angry, not because she was black. That was not why they were mad. He had married outside of the lineage of Shem. The Ethiopians were from the lineage of Ham. The sons of Abraham were to take daughters from within the lineage of Shem, not from Ham. All right? And they were angry because he went out of his nationality, not color, because all of them were black. But the nation was the Hamitic nation and the Japhetic nation or Japheth nation and the Shemitic nation, not Semitic, Shemitic nation. All right? So they were angry with him because he had married the Ethiopian woman, not because he married a black woman, because he married an Ethiopian woman. They were already black. Now, then Miriam was turned white. The black woman was turned white. Now watch this now. You say, well, brother, you sound racial prejudice. Listen, when people teach the Bible, now we become racial because we're teaching you what the scriptures say. So if anybody's racial, then you are the racial one because you're getting offended because truth is being taught from the scriptures. Now let's get back. So he says here, and verse 9, the anger of Yah was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became lepers, white as snow, and Aharon looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. All right. So Miriam became white. It was a sign of the Most High's disapproval. So people have tried to take the curse of Ham's son Canaan to be cursed, to say that black skin was the curse. Looked like to me it's the other way around, brothers and sisters. When he got angry, she wasn't turned black, she was turned white. Think about it. Think about it. All right, now, that's not a racial statement, that's a statement of fact. You know, you want to say black is a curse, now all of a sudden we're reading the scripture and showing you that she was cursed with leprosy, turned white. Hey, don't argue with me, argue with the scriptures. All right, I love you just the same. Now, let's look at, so here we find that Moshe had taken on a wife. Let's look at another place in scripture, Exodus chapter 18. Exodus chapter 18 and verse number 1. And it says, and Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moshe's father-in-law, heard all that Elohim had done for Moshe and for Israel, his people, and that Yah had brought Israel out of Egypt. So Moshe had left his wife while he dealt with this stiff-necked Pharaoh. All right? Verse 2, Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back, and her 2 sons, of which the name of one was Gershom. See that? For he said, I have been an alien in a strange land. Now we read in another place in scripture where in the 2nd chapter, I believe it was, where Moshe's wife gave him, the Midian woman, gave him a son, Gershom. Let's read that again. Look at Exodus chapter 2, because somebody said, well, Moshe had 2 wives. That other wife was not black. That's foolishness. And we're going to show you how foolish it is because it's right in the scripture, okay? Exodus chapter 6, chapter 2, I should say, and verse number 16, okay? Let's look at verse 21. Exodus chapter 2, verse 21. And Moshe was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moshe Zipporah, his daughter. And she bore him a son and called his name Gershom. All right? For he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. So this is the same woman, brothers and sisters, that Moshe went back and was reunited with her after he did battle against Pharaoh. Okay, now, so back in verse chapter 18, verse 3, and her 2 sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom, for he had said, I have been an alien in a strange land. And the name of the other was Eliezer. For Elohim of my father said, he was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Verse 5, here we go. Listen to this. And Jethro, Moshe's father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moshe into the wilderness, where he encamped at the mount of Yah. You see that? So now the same woman, the Ethiopian, Midianite Ethiopian woman, was brought into the wilderness to be with her husband, Moshe, by her father, Jethro. And she gave him 2 children. So the Ethiopian black woman got together with the Israelite black man and brought forth 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Stay tuned for the conclusion of this matter. Now, Israel, after that, we want to make a point that the nation of Israel that dwelled in the land of Egypt for 400 years went in the land with 70 people. Let's look at Exodus chapter 1 again, verse 5, where it talks about how that Israel went into the land with 70 people, and the souls that came of the loins of Yaakov were 70 souls, for Yosef was in Egypt already. So they went into Egypt with 70 souls. Now, let's go to Exodus chapter 12. We're going to show you how many people came out of Egypt after 400 years and who they come out with. All right, chapter 12, verse number 38, one verse. Let's look at verse 38. No, verse 37. Exodus chapter 12, verse 37. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men besides children. Okay? So they didn't count the women and the children. They came out men, 600,000 men on foot. Verse 38. And a mixed multitude, watch this now, went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. All right. So here we find the nation of Israel goes into Egypt with 70 people and come out with 600,000, not counting women and children. The account is roughly 1 million people with the mixed multitude. Now, who did Israel marry? Who did they come out of Egypt with? They came out with daughters of Egyptians, black people. So now we have sons of Abraham mixing more with black people. Now you say they're white. We already disproved that already. Let's deal with one other subject, one other part with regards to the nation of Israel as far as to the ethnic origins of the so-called blacks and African Americans. All right. Now, We have to understand Genesis chapter 10, as we've gone over in our previous session, that the sons of Ham are black people. Ham populated Egypt, which is Mizraim, which is Egypt, Put, which is Libya, North Africa, Ethiopia, Cush, which is Somalia, Ethiopia, Iraq, the ancient Mesopotamia, north and south, around the Mediterranean. Around the Tigris River. Okay, now, then we have Canaan, who is the ancient land of Israel. The land of Israel is called the land of Canaan. Okay, now, if we go to Deuteronomy, and I'm going to close this out right here. Deuteronomy chapter 7. All right, now, Deuteronomy chapter 7. Here we find that the Most High gave a command to the nation of Israel through the prophet Moshe. He says, let's look at verse 1, okay? Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 1. When Yah thy Elohim shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest and possess it, and thou hast cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when Yah thy Elohim shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto thy sons, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other deities. So will the anger of Yah be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall you deal with them. You shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. Watch this now. For thou art a set apart people unto Yah thy Elohim, and Yah thy Elohim hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Now watch this now. Yah did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of all people. But because Yah loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, have Yah brought you out with mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of the bondmen, and from the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt. Now therefore that Yah thy Elohim, he is Elohim, and the faithful El, which keepeth covenant mercy with them that love him, and keepeth his commandments to 1,000 generations. Now, so here the Most High made a covenant with the nation of Israel and told them not to mix with the Canaanites, not to marry their daughters, but to kill them, to destroy it. Now, let's go over to Judges as we close the session out here. Judges chapter 3, and we're going to show you what the nation of Israel did, how they violated, brothers and sisters, the charge was given to them. Judges chapter 3, we'll look at Judges chapter 3, verse, hallelujah, Judges chapter 3, and let's look at verse 6, okay? And they took the daughters, let's skip up to verse 4, okay? And they were to prove Israel by them to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of Yah, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moshe. And the children of Israel dwelt in the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, and Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their deity. Boom, there it is. So Israel married the Canaanites that they were supposed to kill, the black people, and gave their sons and daughters to the black Canaanites. And so there, Israel had to be cut a ordinance or law to keep the curses that we're going to talk about in this next session, to keep them from falling under the curses. And Israel was for some real serious trouble. Stay tuned for the next part. Now we want to go into the portion of the curses of what happened or what was pronounced to the nation of Israel. But before I do that, I want to look at Genesis chapter 10 for clarity's sake and understand let's look at chapter 9 of Genesis, and let's deal with the curse of Canaan. Because to understand why, brothers and sisters, that the Most High gave Israel the commandment, because he wanted to show the nation of Israel how to keep the curses off of them. Because Israel had married into the cursed people. So we're going to deal with the curse of Canaan very quickly from one scripture, and then we're going to show you what the Most High said, and then we're going to show you the command, the laws that he placed before the children of Israel to keep the curses off of them. All right, now, Genesis chapter 9 and verse number 22. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon